It was a crisp autumn evening when Emily, a young woman in her late 20s, found herself alone at her family's remote countryside home. Her parents had gone on a weekend trip, and her brother had decided to stay over at a friend's house. The isolation, once a comforting retreat, now felt ominous, with the shadows growing long across the empty rooms. As the wind howled outside, Emily settled into the warmth of the living room, reading a book to pass the time. The peaceful silence was suddenly interrupted by the faintest sound, a soft creak from the staircase. At first, Emily dismissed it. It could have been the house settling, the wind pressing against the windows, but the creak was followed by a soft tapping, rhythmic and deliberate from the second floor. Her heart began to race. Was it the wind again, or something else? She stood, unsure of what to do. She called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" But only the eerie stillness answered. With growing unease, she grabbed the nearest object, a heavy lamp, and ascended the stairs slowly, every step echoing like a warning. When she reached the top, she stopped dead in her tracks. The hallway was empty, except for the dim light of her bedroom door slightly ajar. She stepped forward, cautiously peering inside. There, sitting on the edge of her bed, was a figure, dark, hunched, and unnaturally still. Emily froze. Her blood ran cold. The figure slowly turned its head toward her, its face obscured by shadows. Then it stood up. Without a word, it started walking toward her. Fear seized Emily, and she fled down the stairs, heart pounding in her chest. She bolted the front door and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house but found nothing. No sign of an intruder, no sign of forced entry. The police suggested it might have been a prank, but Emily knew what she had seen, or rather what she hadn't seen, because, to this day, she could never explain the feeling of being watched that lingered in the corners of that house. Jonathan had always prided himself on his independence. A college student living in an off-campus apartment, he relished the solitude that came with being home alone. One evening, as a thunderstorm raged outside, Jonathan settled on the couch with a bowl of popcorn and his favorite movie. The perfect way to spend the evening, he thought. But then, just as the storm reached its peak, the phone rang. "Hello?" Jonathan answered, expecting it to be his friend. But instead, the line was eerily silent. "Hello?" he repeated, frowning as a sense of unease began creeping up his spine. Suddenly, a raspy voice whispered, "I can see you." Jonathan froze, a chill racing down his spine. He glanced around the room but saw nothing. His heart began to pound. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice shaky. The voice responded barely above a whisper. "You're all alone, aren't you?" Jonathan's breath caught in his throat. His fingers trembled as he held the phone to his ear. The storm raged louder outside, but the storm inside his mind was deafening. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the call ended. The line went dead. Shaking, Jonathan tried to calm himself. Maybe it was a prank, some twisted joke played by one of his friends. But as he set the phone down, the sound of a soft knock echoed from the window, followed by another, then another. He approached the window cautiously, his heart thudding in his chest. But as he peeked outside, he saw nothing. Just the rain, the wind, the darkness. That night, Jonathan slept with the lights on. The knock at his window never came again. But for weeks afterward, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, waiting for him to be alone again. Sarah had always felt safe in her suburban home. It was a place where the hum of the refrigerator and the gentle ticking of the clock created a soothing rhythm. But that safety was shattered one fateful night when her parents went away for the weekend, leaving Sarah alone in the house. It started when she heard the front door creak open around midnight. At first, she thought it was her parents coming. Home early, But as the minutes passed, she began to feel a gnawing sense of dread. They had told her they'd be gone for another day. Sarah stood up, her mind racing. She tried calling her parents, but the line was dead. She walked cautiously to the door, her bare feet cold against the hardwood floors. She could hear someone moving in the kitchen. Slow, deliberate steps, like someone who knew the house. Intimately, her pulse quickened. She grabbed the nearest thing she could, a kitchen knife, and crept toward the kitchen, the shadows of the house seeming to grow taller as she moved. When she reached the doorway, she gasped. There, standing in the middle of the kitchen, was a man. His back was turned, and he didn't seem to hear her approach. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, her voice shaky. The man slowly turned toward her. His face was emotionless, his eyes hollow. He didn't speak, but his presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of terror. Without a word, he turned and walked toward the back door. Sarah, in a state of paralysis, could barely move. She watched as he opened the door, stepped outside, and disappeared into the night. The police found no sign of the man when they arrived. No footprints, no evidence of a break-in. It was as if he had never been there at all. But Sarah would never forget the look in his eyes, the cold, dead stare that followed her even after he left. Each of these stories serves as a chilling reminder of how fragile our sense of security can be when we are alone. Whether it's a shadow in the corner of a room, a voice on the other end of the phone, or a stranger in your house, the fear that lingers long after the incident is often the most terrifying part. Who can you trust when you're alone? And when the silence of your home becomes unbearable, can you be sure you're truly alone?